Hello everybody and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Today we have a special breakdown covering the recent correction Bitcoin has had. Are we going to be holding support right now, or do we have one more low upon us before this is over? We're going to be jumping into the S&P 500. The S&P 500 has been on a massive breakout, and this is the first pullback that we've had since new all-time highs, and we need to talk a little bit about when this is going to bottom because the stock market does fuel Bitcoin's adoption. We're also going to be taking a look at each one of the altcoin total market cap charts so that we can be best prepared and know exactly how to play this market moving forward from here. If you guys find value, leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see how I'm trading, links are in the description to go ahead and follow along with my VIP program. Right off the bat, guys, when we're jumping into Bitcoin, I wanted to go into the shorter time frames and map out a little bit about what we're seeing right now. Now, Bitcoin had this move. We had a false breakout, and as it stands, we're kind of just consolidating inside of the same range. At this point, we've retested the range lows as support, and we've more or less just been consolidating inside of this channel right around these prior all-time highs. Now, with this most recent flush, we were unable to really break down, but the way it's looking, I'm still anticipating that this is going to end up pulling back again. We're going to break below this support, and we'll have one more flush back below this support before this correction is over. That's personally what I'm leaning to, and a lot of that has to do with the fact when I look at Bitcoin, we've had such a massive move off of the breakout of 25K, right? This was the last correction that we really had that was worthwhile, where we spent about 180 days kind of going sideways here. Now, from that point, we haven't really had any pullbacks. The ETF sell-off was a pretty small one. It wasn't lasting very long, and then we got this instant breakout into new all-time highs. So this is really our first correction that we've seen since all the way back down here at 25K. So when I'm looking at this correction, I do anticipate that it's going to have this one final low, do one more quick shakeout, get all the weak hands before we can actually go into new all-time highs. But that's kind of what I'm watching for. Every one of our cycles, we've seen a period of time where once the market rallies back up to those prior all-time highs, we do see some type of a correction. In the last cycle, it was right here, and I was kind of anticipating that we were going to hold this support structure like what we did here before breaking out. And then once we ended up coming back down to retest this support, that's when that plan was invalidated. And then from there, I am anticipating that we'll see one more kind of lower low shakeout. But it's not really any different from what we saw in 2017. The entire run up in 2017, specifically when we hit those all-time highs, we saw this same correction. Made this lower high, lower low, and that was kind of the final shakeout before we got into price discovery. So when I'm looking at Bitcoin today, I don't really think that we're at any sort of different point in the structure. The only difference is, instead of holding this base support, I think that we're going to get one more final low, shake out all the weak hands, clear this range low, break down from this range low support, and then from there we can actually get that next move into price discovery. A lot of this is revolving around the stock market. When we're looking over here at the stock market, we just barely topped on the first, so we're 2 weeks into this correction. Chances are this is going to last another couple weeks, I would assume. We're kind of in the very beginning of this decline, so we're only 2 weeks into this decline. My guess is this ends up making one more pullback, and we'll probably come back down to about 49.50. And that's going to be the support level that I am watching for when we're going to end up bottoming. So 49.50 is the area I'm going to be looking at. I think that once the stock market, being the S&P 500, tags that level, from there we're going to be looking at a reversion. So looking at Bitcoin, this is most likely what's going to be spawned out of that sell-off with the stock market. One more final flush below that range low. The stock market will make one more drop back down to about 49.50. Now, coming over here and looking at the crypto total market cap, this is one of the best charts that you can look at, and it's all for the same reasons that I always told you guys about in my prior videos. Now, what we were watching for was, when we saw this correction, I was telling you guys that most likely we were going to revisit this prior lower high being 2.165 trillion, and we've currently retested it 2 different times. Now, most recently with this secondary retest, to me this is looking like we're going to end up revisiting lower than this, and I do lean towards the potential that this is going to end up falling to about 1.875 trillion. Around the mid-range of this lower high consolidation of our beginning of our bear market in 2022, I kind of think that that's where we're going to end up revisiting. When I'm looking at this on the shorter time frames, like the daily, if we're coming over here and looking at this in a shorter time frame, we can see that we're kind of rejecting off of our prior support level, right? With us rejecting off of this, as long as we stay below this level, I think that this is going to fall out, and we're going to end up seeing one more final shakeout here. Pretty much just following along with the S&P 500, following along with Bitcoin in the same type of consolidation. To me, the next support is probably 1.875 trillion. I don't really see anything much stronger than that, and that'll be taking us back down to, basically the high that we made right going into the ETF approval. And then when we broke out of that same high at 1.8 trillion, I think that that's going to be the level we're coming back down to. You know, mid-range cycle of this lower high, you know, retesting some of these prior support levels that we had leading into this most recent breakout. And then from there, we'll probably end up seeing that correction being over. We can see that on the 2-day time frame, this is closing below our resistance. Well, I should say below our prior support, now acting as resistance. So the likelihood scenario is that this just rolls over and we get one more final shakeout. I think that that's the most likely scenario from here, and so I want you guys to just simply be prepared for either of those scenarios. When I do look at the total market cap, I see the potential that this is just your standard ABC correction, and we just need one more low, because in every single C wave, right, A, B, and this big C wave, we always see 5 impulse waves. We saw one. I think that this most recent one was wave 3. We're currently inside of wave 4, and I think that we've got one more final shakeout coming inside of this wave 5, right back down to about 1.875 trillion approximately before we get that reversion. And then from there, you know, we'll just do the same sort of event like we always do. This is what I'm anticipating for Bitcoin. Considering when we're looking at Bitcoin, I shared with you guys the 2017 uptrend where we did this same pattern, right? Where this is the prior all-time highs, we rallied right back up into them, got this lower high, and this was just your standard ABC correction that seems to follow all the time inside of these bull markets, A, B, and C. So when I'm looking at our current consolidation, I really just see a lot of the same similarities. We're just kind of waiting for that final shakeout to take place right here. So coming over here and looking at the total altcoin market cap, this one didn't quite do as well. Obviously, Bitcoin has been outperforming everything, but we ended up peaking at the level that I anticipated we would. We came right up and tagged the top of this lower high, and then from there, that's where we're seeing the pullback. Altcoins got smashed in that initial sell-off, and we saw Bitcoin dominance breaking out. But the truth is, when I'm looking at this, it looks a lot like your classic ABC correction, and I do think that we only need one more low before this is over. Most likely, this thing's going to drop to about 850 billion. You know, the very low support of this lower high in our bear market, and then also the same high that we made, you know, right as the ETF got approved. So that's kind of what I'm watching out for with this. You know, looking at our wave count, we have a wave 1, we have a wave 3, and I think that we're just missing that final shakeout here before we get that reversion. So if you guys are watching for when to buy the dip, I would wait for one more sell-off. That's where I'm personally going to be leveraging back into new positions. That's where I'm going to be focusing my buying power, because I just don't think that we're there quite yet. I'm willing to wait. If the market breaks out, we reclaim this prior level of support at about 1.6 trillion, I guess you could say 1.06 trillion. You know, at that point, we could be looking for a reversion, but we're currently closing below resistance, and it does look like we need one more final wave back down. And then from there, I would basically be anticipating something like this. You know, we'll correct for a little bit, and then we'll be starting that next leg up into price discovery. So coming over here and looking at the total 3, this is another good example of, you know, how to play support and resistance. This was the support of our lower high, and we can see that in the initial sell-off, this came right back down and retested this level as support. We bounced right back up. But now, with this most recent sell-off, we're actually closing below that, right? Notice how the candle bodies are closing below this resistance level. So what this is actually red. This is currently resistance. We're closing below the prior lower high of our bear market. And I do firmly believe that this is showing the exact same thing the other charts were, where we're just working on 5 waves down inside of this ABC correction. We got one more coming. I think that this thing probably goes back down to like 500 billion in market cap, something like this. And then, you know, once again, just like I've been drawing with all these other charts, from there we'll probably end up seeing the reversion. And I do kind of look at this as, you know, a hybrid disbelief phase, right? Because like kind of all the way down here was the disbelief where we were just rounding out and stuff. But you could kind of count this as the despair phase of the market cycle, where we're just kind of going lower. We're still in the bear market bottom. Nobody really thinks it's going to take off. And that's where we end up seeing the reversion. So with us having this first breakout, I do look at this as the disbelief phase, very similarly to what we saw even in the last cycle. Remember how we went through all this consolidation, and then it was right here when we broke out of this range, retested as support, and then that's where we got the reversion. I think that we're at a very similar point. The only difference is we're just sitting up here and getting that correction, and it's a deeper correction because there's been more volatility. Nothing has really changed, though. I mean, the cycles are still relatively the same. We're just getting our first correction in here, come back down, retest these prior levels before we get that next big move. But the thing that I think is very apparent when I'm looking at these charts, regardless if we see one more lower low or not, I do firmly believe that this is probably the last good buy opportunity that we have inside of this most recent coming correction before we get to new all-time highs. So I would do the best that you can to accumulate in these dips. Don't worry about the dip so much. Don't be too over leveraged. Don't get, in your own head trying to make these crazy decisions, and just hold out through the volatility. The only thing you should really be doing is holding your long-term portfolio, looking to go into that new all-time high, looking to sell the end of this year, maybe the end of 2025, or you should be looking to buy the dip, or both of those things. I mean, at the end of the day, these corrections are going to happen. We've seen such a significant move off of the lows, so to see this pullback, it's not surprising. It's typical. And I've been telling you guys that I was hopeful to see a correction because of how quick Bitcoin's going up into a new all-time high. This is the first time that it's really ever done that. And so when we're looking at Bitcoin performing so well, we didn't really want to see it go up so quick without having any type of pullback, because the last pullback was all the way down here and it was just this little teeny tiny thing. And even the pullback that we saw when we broke 25K, we've so far in this cycle, the bear market, we've seen people more willing to buy into the bear market earlier. Even though we did have a lower low at the end of the year following your typical 4-year trend, most of the markets were bottoming in June, right? ETH bottomed in June, never made a lower low with FTX. And that was kind of the staple across the board on a lot of altcoins. So in this cycle, we've seen more buy support than ever before. With the ETF rumors, we saw more people willing to accumulate in the dips. The dips themselves were pretty small. They weren't very big in comparison to maybe some of the prior cycles. And that to me tells me that there's a lot more buy support than we've ever had inside of the market. So if we get one more low, I would be grateful for that. But if we don't, it doesn't really matter that much. The big thing that I wanted to see was a correction, because a correction gives everybody an opportunity to get back in the market. If you've made any sort of profit and you've realized any of that and it's just sitting in stables, these are the opportunities where you want to get in. Even if you bought yesterday and you might be down a little bit today, or maybe you're up a little bit and you're wondering, well, what happens if it makes a lower low and I'm actually at a loss? It doesn't matter, guys. As long as you're dollar cost averaging, I have a lot of confidence because I've traded these cycles that these corrections will get bought up and they will reverse. And when they reverse, it catches everybody by surprise because of how quick they tend to go back up. With this cycle already showing more buy support than ever before, with ETF, with institutions buying billions and billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin every day, you don't really want to be fading these corrections. And I wouldn't try to get so worried about nailing the exact bottom. Right now is still a good time to buy. If we get that lower low, it's another good time to buy. But I don't really foresee us going any lower than one more low from here. We still could reverse at this level, but we kind of just need to reclaim these prior support levels. That's the main thing. Bitcoin, to me, in the shorter time frames, does look bear flaggish. So when I'm looking at this, I do find it likely that Bitcoin is going to end up correcting from this level. It'll break down from here, and then we'll make this final sort of shakeout. That's most likely where you want to be getting into the positions. If you bought inside of this first dip, I wouldn't be too worried about trying to sell and jump back in at a lower price. Don't try and overtrade things. If you're dollar cost averaging, you're never going to buy the exact low, and you're never going to sell the exact top. So just, the more that you're aware of that, the better off you're going to be. So looking at all the charts, this is kind of what I'm seeing. The stock market, in my opinion, will really dictate what we're going to see with crypto. Once this thing is bottomed, which I think we've kind of got one more shakeout coming before that takes place, that's when I'm going to be looking at the altcoins bottomed, all of the altcoin charts, total 1, 2, and 3. And then we're going to be looking at Bitcoin doing the same thing. So I wanted to give you guys this update, summarize some of the thoughts that I'm seeing in the market. One more low, and I'm buying the dip with everything that I possibly can. If we reverse from this level, I'll jump back in at a higher price. I'm willing to do that, but I'll keep you guys updated. When I think the bottom's in, I'll give you guys an update. I'm going to be making updates every single day this week because we're at a very important time. We need to be prepared. We need to be positioned so that we can ultimately make the most opportunity, so that we can ultimately make the most profit possible and keep this opportunity going. This is the best cycle that we could ever be a part of, and these are the opportunities where we can compound our gains, focus on what altcoins are the best performing, because many of them are down 60-70% from their cycle tops, and this is an amazing opportunity considering if we're looking at this thing reversing, and going into a new all-time high, this is basically the last good dip we're going to have until price discovery. So thank you guys so much. Join into my Discord if you want to see my trades. Links are in the description to sign up on my website. Thank you so much for tuning in, and with that being said, I'll catch you in the next one. As always, peace out.